but in all of thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. He shall direct, but in all of thy ways he shall direct thy path. He shall direct thy path.
Why do we keep Shabbat? What is the Sabbath? Why do we keep and follow Torah? How do we keep Torah? Who is Yahusha? Who is Yahuah? Are Yahusha and Yahuah the same? What are the commandments that we follow today? Is there a difference between the Tanakh, the Old Testament, and the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament? Are they one book? Or are they two books? All these questions and more are answered as we step into our new Q&A forum. Join us as we walk through the pages of the Father's Word, rightly dividing truth to answer burning questions vital to every believer.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to the Q&A with Assembly of Yahuah. Welcome everybody on YouTube so far. Welcome everybody in the Zoom. Let's have a word of prayer. Let's get right into it. Father Yah, we want to thank you so much for just strengthening us and protecting us throughout this week. We ask for your guidance in our study and our approach to your word. We ask for your strength and your Ruach to be moving in us, helping us to be reverent, helping us to be respectful to your word, submitted to giving ourselves to what you say. Help us to not lean into our own understanding, but to see the information and to receive it the way that you want us to. Father, I ask for your special blessing, Father, on us on this set apart day. I ask for your cleansing of our sins. I ask that you please be with us and your people all over the world. As we approach this topic, I ask that you bring clarity and strength, and that you make us aware of not only the deceptions, but of the truth, Father, and that we may be never caught off guard, never deceived by any lies, but that we know that your truth is in simplicity. And we thank you for how simple you present your word to us. Father, we thank you so much for this time. We ask that you be with each one of us today. In the name of your Son, we pray. Hallelujah. Amen. All right, we're looking at Malachi chapter 3, verse 16. And it says, "Then they that feared Yahuwah spake often one to another, and Yahuwah hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Yahuwah, and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith Yahuwah of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spares his own son that serves him, and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serves Elohim and him that serves him not." 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10 says, "I appeal to you, dear brothers and sisters, by the authority of our master Yahusha HaMashiach, to live in harmony with each other. Let there be no divisions in the assembly, rather be of one mind, united in thought and in purpose." And I just want to remind everybody, disagreement does not mean disunity, but that we also make sure that we're considering what's presented by one another. But we also have the responsibility to go home and make sure that we're lining ourselves up personally with Yah's word and in his truth. Give me 1 second. All right. If you haven't already, those watching on YouTube, you want to visit our website, find out what we're all about, find out the things that we normally do, and and promote, you can go to assemblyofyahuah.com. If you are a student of the word and you desire to understand and learn, and you need resources, you can go to assemblyofyahuah.com/resources to basically partake in whatever resources we put together, so that way your study can go smoothly. If you desire to support this ministry, push us forward in our efforts to help the people set up feasts, you can please go to assemblyofyahuah.com/give to support the ministry's efforts in those things. All right. Group discussion reminders, the live chat. Praise Yah. Welcome everybody watching. Be kind one to another. Don't over explain things to people who may be misunderstanding certain things. Just be patient. If you're gonna pose a question, please make sure that you use all caps. Today is going to be a very specific topic, so we want any questions to be kind of geared around that, so that way we won't lose focus. We'll go back to normal Q&A next week. But make sure that it's in all caps, so that way it can be easily seen. Limit the frequent typing. Praise Yah, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and greeting one another. Make sure that the conversations about certain topics is not flooding the chat and becoming more of a distraction than helpful. And be patient, waiting for your questions to be answered as well. Again, make sure that it's centered around today's topic, which is Melchizedek. You can even put some priesthood questions in there as well, but I'm gonna focus on that specifically. In the Zoom, you can raise your hand as many times as you want. Make sure that you do not unmute unless you are called on. When you are called on, make sure that you make your statements brief, 2 minutes or less. Scriptures, up to 2 scriptures, in order to agree or disagree with whatever point is being made, or to even present any new point. Please consider others as you are talking. Sometimes we lose sight because of passion, towards the topic. We lose sight of how much time we're actually taking away from others. So, praise Yah. All right, so we are going to discuss Melchizedek. Now, there's a lot of angles that we could start in, but I want to start from the beginning and kind of move forward to Abraham. So what I'm going to do is what's going on, the reason why Abraham lived in the land of Canaan and did not obtain it for his own possession. Even though it was promised to him, he did not obtain it because of who owned it. The people that owned it were also in a covenant with Yah. And I think that a lot of people lose sight of that because we focus a lot of our time down the line of history in the days of Israel rather than in the days of I would say even Abraham. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the covenant. I think that we discussed how the everlasting covenant is not a brand new covenant, that the covenant that Yah is establishing with his people is a covenant that was given to Abraham. It's the covenant that was given to Noah. It's the covenant that was given to Adam. This is the same covenant. So that's the first thing we want to look at, is establish what type of covenant it is. So that way we can understand what's going on during the time of Abraham. And once we understand what's going on during the time of Abraham, we're going to know who this person is. Even to the point, I believe, to knowing what nation he's from. And here's a hint: he's not from the nation of Israel. So let's start with going to our first principle. It's located in Isaiah chapter 24, looking at verse 5. I pray everybody follows along. We're going to look at a map too. I just want to make sure that this is very simple, right? So Verse 24 says in Isaiah chapter 24, the earth mourns and fades away, the world languishes and fades away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth is defiled under the inhabitants of it because they transgressed the laws, because they changed the ordinance, and because they have broken the everlasting covenant. They have broken the everlasting covenant. So we see that the covenant or the everlasting covenant was already given at this time. The everlasting covenant does not start when Messiah comes or when Messiah dies. The everlasting covenant is the covenant that Yah has been trying to establish with his people after they've broken it in the garden. You can tell because the very next verse gives you descriptions of how the nature of breaking this covenant. It says, therefore, the curse devours the earth, and they that dwell in it are desolate. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. One of the consequences of breaking the everlasting covenant is the earth being devoured by a curse. The earth being devoured by a curse. The first time that this everlasting covenant was done was in Genesis chapter 3. And in Genesis chapter 3, we see that the earth was cursed. Genesis 3:17. The earth was cursed, the ground was cursed, the inhabitants was cursed because of the breaking of this everlasting covenant. We're going to see it's the same nature. It's the same nature of things, right? So the everlasting covenant was broken, the earth was cursed. So we see clearly that the everlasting covenant has already been given, and this is the covenant that is everlasting. I know that nobody has a problem with understanding when something is everlasting, is there's not a whole bunch of different covenants that separates from this everlasting covenant. There can be amendments or ideas or things added to a covenant, but you can't just take away things from a covenant once it's made, right? So you can, the things that you add to like if you have a contract, the things that you would add to a contract is called like an addendum. So you can add things to a contract, but you can't remove things from a contract after it's already established. So the same thing with a covenant. Covenant was established. It's an everlasting covenant. Therefore, throughout history, because of sin, Yah starts to add these little things to the covenant to help promote a completion of the actual covenant, to get us to that place, right? So that's one thing I want to mention, is that the everlasting covenant has been from the beginning. A part of this everlasting covenant, I believe everybody understands already, is it's not only a rulership, it's also a priesthood. So it's not only a rulership, a dominion that a person has, but it's also a priesthood. So we're gonna look at that a little bit more. After this situation where the earth was cursed, we see that Noah entered into a covenant with Yah. Genesis chapter 9. It says here, Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, right? And replenish the earth. Let's go down to verse 8. Elohim said to Noah and to his sons with him, I establish my covenant with you and your seed after you. Who is he talking to? He's talking to Noah and to his sons. He's talking to Ham. He's talking to Japheth. He is talking to Shem. He is not only talking to Shem. He is talking to Ham and Japheth as well. He says, I will establish a covenant with you and with your children after you. This is very important. I want you to know this. And with your children after you. And then he says, and with the living creatures that is with you. And then he talks about the covenant of destruction. Like he will not destroy the earth with waters anymore. I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off anymore. So this is a second aspect. I'm going to establish my covenant with you, and neither, meaning also, this will not happen again. This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature. I will set a rainbow in the sky as a token or reminder of that covenant between me and the earth. So he's talking about the destruction, right? But there's a very specific difference between the replenishing and the rulership of the earth with Noah and his sons and the destruction of the earth, with the covenant to the earth. So look at this. Elohim said to Noah in verse 17, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh upon the earth. The sons of Noah went forth out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. These are 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. Okay, so did Yah only make a covenant with Shem and the Israelites that was going to come after them and Shem's children? Or did he make a covenant with Noah and his 3 sons and their children, and those children that was involved in this covenant filled the population of the whole entire earth? I want us to understand how Yah was dealing with the nations. Yah was not dealing with the nations separately in the very beginning with Israel. He only dealt that way along as time went by. As history went by, he then focused on Israel because he promised Abraham specifically. He brought Abraham out of the nations. And it's a very important thing that you understand. The covenant was made with Noah and his sons, and then his sons started to develop throughout history. Abraham wasn't supposed to leave his father. He left because his family left Yah's covenant. They began to worship idols, and he had to separate Abraham because Yah's covenant was being broken by the generations. That was actually Shem's generation. So Abraham's father's house is Shem's generation. So Shem's generation was breaking the covenant. And you're going to be very interested to see that even though Shem's generation started committing idolatry during the time of Abraham, you're going to see that Ham's generation did not. Ham's generation actually continued. And it doesn't really mention much about the Japheth's generation, especially considering that Japheth, I believe, his generation occupied the European nations and things like that. But when we're talking about Canaan, we're talking about Africa. When we're talking about Africa, we're talking about where Ham's children resided as well as Shem's children resided. So we're looking at this covenant being for Japheth, Shem, and Ham. And by the time Abraham's life came, we're going to see that Abraham's family line broke Yah's covenant. And that's why he told Abraham to leave his family, to leave his family's house. Genesis chapter 12, it says here, now Yahuah said unto Abraham, get you out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house unto a land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless them that bless you, curse them that curse you, and in you shall all families of the earth be blessed. So what is he using Abraham to do? He's using Abraham to restore the covenant that he had with all of the families of the earth. When did he make a covenant with all the families of the earth? Genesis chapter 9, where he blessed Noah, Japheth, Ham, and Shem, and their seed. He made a covenant with them and their seed. This is when they were blessed. By the time Abraham came, he was utilizing Abraham and the righteous will of his heart to give him an understanding of righteousness, to bless and restore the rest of the families of this earth, because that's how it originally was. Okay, so I'm hoping that you follow me so far. So when we get to Abraham, what actually happened? Abraham lived, as a matter of fact, does anybody, I wanna kind of see if anybody knows. What land did Abraham live in? You can type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand to answer. What land, what country, what area did Abraham live in? Brother Charles, go ahead, brother.
Did he live in the land of where Shinar or
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, that's where he was when absolutely, I should have made the question clearer. He came from Shinar, which is the land of the Chaldees. Later on, we know as Babylon, but before it was ancient Mesopotamia. Absolutely, the Chaldees. Haran was right there next to it. When at the end of Abraham's life, where did he live? Or I would say close to the end. Right before Isaac was born, where did he live? He didn't live in Salem. He moved away. His father's house was Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia. He moved away from Mesopotamia to go somewhere else. Let's see, Brother Ben, go ahead, brother.
Was it Hebron?
It was in Hebron. Yes, Hebron was a city. Where? Anybody know where Hebron was a city? It was a city in a certain landmass. Go ahead, Brother Charles.
Was it you don't want to say it's Canaan, right? Or was it Jerusalem?
It was, yes. Hebron is a city in Canaan.
Right.
Hebron is a city in Canaan. So let me show you guys. I wanted to see if I could pull up the land of Canaan for you guys. Do you guys see it? This is during the time of the 12 tribes of Israel. So hopefully I could. Do you guys see it? Are you guys able to see it? Anybody?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, man, I can see it.
All right, good. So you see, this is during the 12 tribes of Israel. So we're going to look at a map that's before the 12 tribes too. But you see Hebron is right here in the land of Judah. Hebron is right here. The Dead Sea is right here beside it. And then up north of Hebron, you're going to see Jerusalem right here. And Jericho is right here. This is where the Israelites came over to Canaan. So this right here, I'm just giving you a little geographical location. These three spots right here is not Canaan. This is the land that they took over before they crossed over to Canaan. When they took this over, they asked if they can inherit it or have it as an inheritance, and Joshua gave it to them as an inheritance, but he made them help the rest of his brothers to obtain the rest of this land. So this is the line right here. This is the line. They crossed over this line right here at Jericho, and they kept this land here for themselves, and they came over. This is where Abraham was, in this area here, Hebron. So I'm going to show you just specific locations, because we're going to read a little bit about the land of Canaan, and we're going to read about why Abraham did not have it as a possession for himself. And Yah was very clear. Daughter of Yah, absolutely, we're going to get to that. Absolutely, Chaldean ancestry. Yeah, this is one family. This is one family, and that whole family became, before Abraham, when Abraham broke off from this family, that family became quite a few nations that did not serve Yah. So let's go back to Abraham now, right? So now we know that all the nations was in a covenant with Yah. All the nations through their forefathers, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and that he wanted to bless them and their children. Their children filled the earth. By the time Abraham came, his family was worshiping idols. And so you have Yah telling him to leave his family. Let me see if I could find, I just want to make sure I could find verses to kind of solidify the understanding of this, right? Because I don't want to just say things and you guys don't know where I'm getting this information from. All right, so Israel was going to cross the Jordan, and Yah was talking to them. Let me see if I could go to, is it in? Okay. I'll find it. I'll find it in a second. So Abraham was told to separate from his family so that way Yah can make a nation out of him, and that nation was going to become a blessing to all the families of the earth, that they were going to bless all the families of the earth. And so he stayed and he left Haran also. Haran is the name of his brother. Haran is Lot's father's name. So Haran basically established this. He had two brothers, Haran and Nahor. And Haran died. Haran was Lot's father. So just to give you a little bit of history on who Haran is and why did his father want to go to Haran to die? His father wanted to go to where his son died, and that's where he stayed. After his father died, Abraham left Haran and started to pursue the promise. Verse 5 of Genesis chapter 12, it says, Abraham took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. Okay? Abraham passed through the land of this place, Shechem, and the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was in the land. Who was living in the land? Who ruled in this land? Who was ruling in the land that Abraham went to? The Canaanites. Now, the Canaanites are not one tribe. The Canaanites are actually the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites. All of these nations that we keep hearing about are all Canaanites. When Abraham went there, the Canaanites rule all of the land. This is why Yah told him he was going to give it to his children. He did not give it to him directly yet. So let's fast forward this. Now that he lives in Canaan and the Canaanites were all around him, let's see what happened in Genesis 14. No, not when he met Melchizedek. Let's see what happened before he met Melchizedek. Okay? And I'm gonna move past a few verses because I want to be able to answer some of these questions centered around this topic, right? So look at what it says here. Genesis chapter 14, looking at verse 13. It says here, there came one that had escaped and told Abraham the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite. You see that? Mamre was an Amorite. Remember, there's a city called Mamre in Israel. Mamre was an Amorite. An Amorite is a Canaanite. A Canaanite is from the children of Ham. It says here, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and these were in a confederate with Abraham. That means that they were together. They were in a crew. They had a crew. They had a covenant where if one person went to war, the other person was there to go to war with them. This is the confederate that Abraham had with these Canaanites, or specifically Amorites. When Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, talking about his brother's son, called him his brother, he armed his trained servants born in his house. 318 pursued him, and they went to Dan. We're going to look at where Dan is in a second. He divided himself against them, and he and his servants by night smote them, and they chased them to Hobah, which was on the left side of Damascus. So let's keep that in mind. Dan, and he chased them to Damascus. And then he brought back all the goods, and he brought Lot back to where he lived. And he brought the women and the people that was taken captive. So now let me show you geographically so you can picture all of this in your mind. I think it's pretty cool to picture these things. Let me see if I could find a different map, a little bit more clear. Okay, this is still Israel. Let me see if I can. All right. I hope you guys can see this. All right. So, remember what we said. Let's look for Jerusalem real quick. So this is the Jordan River right here. Jerusalem is right here. Hebron is in this area here, near Beersheba. So Hebron is here. I hope you guys can see this. Jerusalem is right here. So when they heard that Lot got taken, they got soldiers and they went all the way up to here where Dan is. They chased him to Damascus, all the way over here in the land of, this is the Syrian land, or it was, I believe it was the Moabite land. I'm not sure. So they chased Hobah to Damascus. They got all the captives and all the goods, and they went all the way back down to where he lived over here, next to Jerusalem in Hebron. Okay. Let me get the verse now. So when they got to Hebron, there's a whole bunch of kings that's involved in this situation. If we go back up to Genesis chapter 1, Genesis 14, verse 1, it's going to tell you about certain kings that was in that area. You have Amraphel, king of Shinar. You have Arioch, king of Elasar. You have Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of the nations, right? These made war with the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, Zeboim, Bela, which is in Zoar. Okay? They all joined together to battle. Now, Abraham wasn't involved in none of these politics. Abraham was just living his life and following Yah. Until they took his nephew. When they took Lot, that's when he was just like, no, I got to go and deal with these kings myself. So look at what it says here. It says here, verse 8, these kings went out, the king of Sodom and king of Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboim, and they joined battle. And then it says in the valley of Siddim, and they went to war with these 5 kings, and they started to lose. When they started to lose, the king of Sodom and Gomorrah started running away. This is going to be important to understand Melchizedek. They started running away. And so when they ran away, they took everybody that was in that area captive, like conquered it. And that's why it says verse 12, and they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and they departed. So when he went after them to save that, but he ended up fighting the war for Sodom and Gomorrah, for the king of Sodom and Gomorrah. When he came back to Hebron, remember, these are all kings of the Canaanites. Everybody that controlled Canaan were Canaanites. That's what it said. Abraham went to Canaan, and the Canaanites ruled the land. They were in the land. All of these kings are Canaanites. Look at what it says here. The king of Sodom went out to meet him after the slaughter of Kedor. This is verse 17. I'm going to just say Kedor. And of the kings that were with him. And they went to the valley of Shiveh, which is the king's dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Elohim. Now, what happens a lot is that we take this verse and pull it out, and because we connect it to other verses that's kind of pointing to Messiah, we don't understand the practical historical view here. All of these kings that ruled in Canaan were Canaanites, specifically Amorites. And guess what? Melchizedek, king of Salem, was also an Amorite king. He was a Hamite from the tribe of Ammon, and he ruled in Jerusalem. Now, is Salem the same as Jerusalem? Salem is the same as Jerusalem. We have Psalms right here, Psalms chapter 76, which specifically calls Salem the place where Yah's temple dwelt. This is David now. In Salem also is his tabernacle, and his dwelling places in Zion. Usually Jerusalem and Zion are used interchangeably to show the dwelling place of Yah and his tabernacle. So we see here clearly Salem is used by David to reference to the location of where his tabernacle was, Jerusalem. Hebron, where Abraham dwelt, is right next to Jerusalem. So when, let me go back to the map because I want you guys to see what's going on. It's just a bunch of kings maneuvering, moving around, trying to conquer one another, and Melchizedek was one of those kings. If you see here, Abraham lived here. When he brought everything up from Dan, Dan is right here. When he brought everyone from Dan back home to Hebron, remember, Zoar is right here. Everybody, Sodom and Gomorrah is over here in this area. So they came around here to Abraham, to this area where the water is, where Hebron is. And then it said that Melchizedek, king of Salem, also came out as well to meet him. But when he came out with bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Elohim. I'm gonna show a little bit more insight. So Melchizedek was the priest of the Most High Elohim. He was the king of Salem. He ruled. All these kings was around him. He blessed the Most High, which delivered your enemies into your hand, and he gave him tithe of all. Like he knew what went on. He knew who blessed Abraham, and Abraham knew. And this is why they connected. The king of Sodom came and started talking to Abraham too while they were all there. They were all gathered together thanking Abraham, but only Melchizedek knew who he truly was in the eyes of the Most High, because he was the priest of the Most High. Everyone else did not really know. They just was like, hey, thank you for everything that you've done for us. You could keep some of the stuff. And he's just like, nah, I'm not gonna keep none of the stuff. But before he gave it back, he gave honor to Abraham by basically blessing him. Yah's high priest was a Canaanite. He was from Salem. Absolutely. Now, why? Because every nation was in a covenant with Yah from the time of Noah and his sons. Every nation. So now, when a king has a rulership, how does he pass down his rulership? He passes it down to who? Not the queen.
So his firstborn.
His firstborn, his son, right? A lot of times they pass down, not only they have like a title for their name, but they pass down the title of that position to their children as well. I want to show you something interesting. Okay. So we have this here. So why is all of these Amorites and Canaanites living here? But then while Abraham is there, there's already a ruler that's a priest of the Most High. So let's go to the promise that was given to Abraham. Abraham in Genesis 15. In Genesis 15, we're going to look at starting from verse 5 to 8. Look at what it says. He brought him forth abroad, and he says, look toward the heavens and tell the stars, if you're able to number them. And he said to them, so shall your seed be. He believed in Yahuah, and it counted him for him for righteousness. He said to him, I am Yahuah that brought you out of Ur of the Chaldees to give you this land to inherit it. He said to Yah, whereby shall I know that I will inherit it? How am I going to know that I inherited it? Because I don't own anything here. All the Canaanites rule. There's kings, Canaanite kings over here, Canaanite kings up there. And now there's Melchizedek, which is the priest of the Most High. He's a king over there in Salem, in Jerusalem. How am I going to know when I inherit these things? If we go down to verse 15, it says here, you shall go to your fathers in peace, and you shall be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall come here again, because the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. What does that mean? What does it mean that the iniquity is not full? Yes, Alexandria.
Does it mean that it's not yet fulfilled?
Well, what does that mean? Yeah, I could use that. What does that mean? Is not yet fulfilled.
That fourth generation they shall come hither again.
Mm-hmm.
That they have not yet come into being with their
Well,
iniquity. I'm just guessing.
The Amorites are there. The Amorites are already there. Let's see. Brother Ben.
Does it mean that the Amorites haven't done wrong to the Israelites yet? Like that point hasn't come to pass yet?
There's no Israelites.
I know yet. I just meant down like
right.
Way down the line.
Well,
okay.
It's not like Yah is anticipating people treating the Israelites bad. You know, he's not saying I'm not gonna give it to you because they didn't treat the Israelites bad. Israelites is not, it's not a thought. Israelites, he's not even talking about the Israelites, he's talking about the Amorites. So he said, you can't have the land.
Oh, because they haven't been conquered yet? Is that why?
No, they can't be conquered. You have the priests of the Most High right there. You have them fighting amongst each other, right? Sister Christina on the chat. Let me. I'm gonna come to you in a second. Sister, Brother Vic and Sister Cynthia.
Could it mean that they were not, for lack of a better word, extinguished? You know, like
no,
the race was done away with?
Well, no, because it says that their iniquities is not full. So it's like Yah is not trying to extinguish them. He made a covenant with Ham, Japheth, and Shem's children. So it's not that he's trying to extinguish them, wait till they're extinguished first. No, because he didn't wait for that, because he had to drive them out when Israel came. So they were not extinguished at that time either. So the matter of fact, they were never extinguished because Israel didn't drive all of them out. So is not that one. Sister Christina said on the chat, the iniquity of the Amorites haven't gotten to its worst. That's what that means. They have not been sinning against Yah to the point where he needs to take their land away from them and give it to Abraham. He promised Abraham, he says, if they bless you, then he will bless them. How did they treat Abraham in Canaan? Anybody? How did the kings all over Canaan? You see, we just read all these kings came over there to talk to Abraham. How did the kings treat Abraham, Brother Charles?
They treated him good.
They treated him like a king, right? When he went to go bury his wife in the land of Haran, which are Amorites, what did they say to him? Does anybody remember? I know what they said to him, but does anybody else remember? What did they say to Abraham in the land of the Amorites? What did they say when he wanted to buy land from them to bury his wife? Sister Alexandria?
I believe that they didn't want to allow him to pay for the land.
Right. They said, you're a prince among us. You're a ruler with us. Like you are a ruler, just like we are rulers. You don't need to pay us nothing. Abraham understood the promise. He already knew it wasn't his land. So he paid them anyway. He paid them anyway because it wasn't his land. It was the Amorites. And he, even though he was respected there, the sins of the Amorites were not happening. They were not flourishing in iniquity at that time of Abraham. Certain kings were, as you can see, certain things were delivered, but you had a king of Jerusalem. Anybody remember Abimelech? Anybody remember what happened with Abimelech when Abraham met Abimelech? Anyone want to share a quick statement about who Abimelech was? So there was a king in a place called Gerar, right? Abraham went down to Gerar, and the rulers of Gerar was looking at Sarah, and they saw him playing around with Sarah, and they saw Sarah looking beautiful. So they asked him, who's this? He said, this is my sister. Abimelech came to Abraham, talked to him, said, I want your sister, paid him money, gave him jewels, gave him treasure, and said, take all of this stuff. I'll take Sarah. Abraham took all those things. He took Sarah. Yah came to Abimelech in a dream and said, don't touch him. Don't touch her. And he said, I did not know. And Yah told Abimelech, I know that your heart was innocent. That's how I was able to stop you from touching her. When Abimelech gave him back his wife, he said, why did you do this to us? Abraham said, I thought you was not righteous here, because they would never commit adultery. They would never kill someone and take their wife. They would never do that, or they would punish that person, because that nation was a righteous people. And Abraham said, I did not know you was a righteous nation. I thought you was going to kill me and take my wife. And the only thing he said was, you shouldn't have lied. You have this king, Abimelech, telling Abraham, you shouldn't have lied to us. You shouldn't have committed that sin to us, even though Yah had mercy. Go back and check out that story. You're going to read it with a fine-tooth comb. Look at every sentence. Look at the conversation. You're going to see that this nation wasn't going to ever take somebody's wife because it was against their rules. It was against their moral judgment, because they were a righteous nation while Abraham was alive. So when we get here, the Amorites' sins or iniquities was not yet full. Matter of fact, there's also a reference in Revelation about the woman's sins reaching heaven. And he was going to bring judgment on Babylon because her sins have reached into heaven. So that statement of being full is talking about, you have not committed abominations enough for me to come and execute judgment. You know, there's an extension of grace and mercy, even to the nations. Even to the nations. So this is what he told Abraham. He told Abraham, I'm not gonna give you this land. I'm gonna give it to your children. These people are not committing adultery, are not sinning to the point of being abominable. And I'm gonna show you. Go ahead, Brother Charles. Brother Charles.
My bad. My bad. I was reading in Genesis 20. I just got a quick question since you mentioned Genesis 20 verse 4 says, but Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, it says Lord. I don't know. Did he say
Yes.
Yahuah or
He
what
said
did he
master.
say?
Master, yeah.
Okay.
He said, Master, will you
slay a righteous nation also?
Right. Praise
So
Yah.
this lets you know that he knew of Yah or something, because it was, I believe it was passed down through Ham, Shem, and Japheth.
Absolutely.
And now I'm starting to get what you're saying, but good stuff, bro. Praise Yah.
I appreciate this one. This matter of fact, let's look at this verse, right? Look at this. Look at what he says here to Abraham. He says, then Abraham Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, what have you done to us? What have I offended you in? That you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin. You have done deeds unto me that ought not be done. Abimelech is rebuking Abraham, bringing a great sin to him because they were aware of sin. Look at what Abraham said. Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place. He thought that the fear of Elohim was not there when the fear of Elohim was actually there. No, this is not Israel. This is Ham's children. Brother Vic and Sister Cindy, we're going to go back to Melchizedek in a second. The historical Amorite king, Melchizedek.
So did you just say that Abimelech was a Canaanite?
Yeah, I believe he was a Canaanite.
So,
his
but
land
what
was
nation specifically was he from that they did not?
That's a good question. Let me see.
Commit adultery. Is it known?
I don't think that it was any particular nation that it was his. He was just basically expressing the morals that him and his kingdom had.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he wasn't saying we had this morals because we're this type of nation. He was just saying, so this is south of Canaan. So this is like towards, it seemed to be towards Egypt area. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at a map. So Genesis 20 verse 1 tells you the ancient names of these lands. But it's literally south of where he lived. He lived in Hebron, and this is south of Hebron. So this is towards I believe, I'm not sure, I think it's the Ammonites land or the Edomite land. But remember, Edom is not alive. A lot of these names that you're looking at is Moses giving Israel the narration of where they're located, because a lot of these people were not even born yet. Remember, this is still Abraham. Edom wasn't born until Isaac was born. Okay? So the land was not the land of Edom. It was called Gerar. So I'm not sure which Hamite nation lived there, but it definitely was a Hamite nation. Canaanite, not a Canaanite. Canaanites only lived in Canaan, but then there were other Hamite nations around Canaan. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just looked real quick online, and it said he was a member of the tribe of Manasseh and was king of Shechem. His father was the biblical judge Gideon.
No. Abimelech, that's another Abimelech that was born. Somebody, Israelite named his son Abimelech as well.
Gotcha.
He's from the tribe of Manasseh. Yeah, and Manasseh is not even born yet.
Okay.
Still Abraham's day. Yeah. So you got to be very careful there too. You got to the names people, they're honoring and reusing names as well. So when you see Abimelech later on, that's not the same Abimelech here. This Abimelech was with the time of Abraham. The other Abimelech is from the tribe of Manasseh, which doesn't exist right now. Go ahead, Brother Charles.
No, I just wanted to say, to give someone that just may be watching, for us to set the record straight. most of Ham's children we know is Canaan and all that. So if you just look at it, the whole land mass that Ham his children took up was from Shinar, Saudi Arabia, Elam, all of that, all the way to Egypt and Morocco and all that, and on down to Africa. They connected them with all his children, you know.
Right.
So that we can know. But praise Yah.
Absolutely. Praise Yah.
And Shem just dwelled within those lands as well.
Well,
so, praise Yah.
See, Shem just dwelt, and then Yah gave Shem land. When the northern and the southern kingdom broke, he made a king of Syria. Syria is Shem's children. Those are Shemites. They are not Israelites because they are not from Abraham, but they are from Shem. That's why Yah, if you read Isaiah, he gives a king to the northern kingdom, a king to the southern kingdom, and then he gives a king to the Syrian kingdom. The Syrian kingdom are not Israelites. They are Shem's children. So in a sense, Yah is blessing Shem's children in that sense. That's where Abraham went to go get Isaac's wife in Syria, in where Laban is. Laban, that they're Syrian, they're Aramean. They're related to Abraham because they're related to Shem, that Shem line. And Yah was like, go to there to get your wife. Isaac even told Jacob to go there to get your wife. That's where Jacob found Rebekah and Leah in the land of Syria, or in the Hebrew word is Aram. Aram is Shem's grandson. So I'm trying to just give some geographical understanding. Abraham was telling Eliezer to go to Shemites to find a wife for Isaac. Isaac told Jacob to go to Shemites to get a wife for, because in a sense, there was like this sense, but even though Yah winked at their ignorance, there was like this sense of righteousness. Their wickedness was not yet full. But so I want to show that Yah was winking at the nations because he blessed the nations and he made a covenant with the nations through the nation's forefathers, Japheth and Ham. So when we get to Canaan, the only reason why Canaan is given to Israel is because Noah cursed Canaan. And so Canaan ended up serving Shem because the land of Canaan was given to Shem's children. But because they were blessing Abraham, Yah said that their iniquity has not come up. Why? Because I will bless those people who bless you. And they kept on blessing Abraham. They kept on blessing him and helping him and giving him and telling him to help them and wanting to be in a confederate with him. They was blessing Abraham so much. Abraham by himself was blessing the families of the nations. But the principle was that Yah wanted to use Abraham and his children to bless all the families of the earth. But Abraham's family was blessing all the families of Canaan, all the Hamites. They looked at him with respect and honor. That's why he was rich. But back to Melchizedek. So when we're looking at this, everybody that dwelt in the land were Canaanite kings. We look at all these Canaanite kings. We look at these Amorite kings. And then we look at Melchizedek come out of Salem, join them to talk to Abraham and give them bread and wine and bless him in the name of Yah. And he acknowledges him as the priest of the Most High. So we're going to look at, we just said, how does a king pass down his lineage? They pass it down through the firstborn son. So we're going to look at, where did Melchizedek pass down the rulership of Jerusalem to another Amorite? Since he's Amorite, how did he pass it down to another Amorite? Go ahead, Sister Alexandria.
I'm sorry, I just quickly want to go back to the blessings that you were talking about. And because you had mentioned earlier how the Father doesn't take things away, but he adds things to it. But those blessings, they still exist? Or just
the blessings? No, every blessing is always conditional.
Well,
The blessings, the blessings to Japheth, Ham, and even Shem were all conditional, which is why he separated Abraham from that lineage, because he could no longer bless an idolatrous generation. So he separated Abraham to begin an extension of the Shemites, but specifically a righteous nation from the Shemites. So the blessing did not continue to go towards all the Shemites. Neither did the blessing go to all the Hamites or all the Japhite. It was always according to their loyalty and obedience to Yah and their faith in Yah that allowed them to stay in the covenant. But they did not, which is why Abraham had to be removed from his kindred. In Genesis chapter 12, it says he had to be separated from his kindred so he can become a great nation. Yah can no longer use his kindred as a nation because they were idolatrous. So he separated them from his kindred to make him a great nation and to bless his kindred. Right? So the kindred of Abraham would be blessed. But we also see that Israel received conditions as well, and that they were cursed if they did not abide or obey. You understand?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, praise Yah. So check this out here. I don't know if you guys know. So look at this. What does this say right here? Joshua chapter 10, verse 1. It came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard about Joshua, had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho, her king. So Adonizedek, so he says, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel, and among them they that feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, all the men there, because all the men in Ai was mighty, and they still was destroyed by Israel. Wherefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, does anybody see that it's pretty familiar, this name here? You see the location? Adonizedek, master of righteousness, Jerusalem. He sent to Hoham, king of Hebron. Remember Hebron? Who ruled in Hebron when Abraham was there? Adonizedek, sister, brother Vic and sister Cynthia.
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, you're right. So, well, not in Hebron. The Amorites, sorry. The Amorites, Abraham lived in the Hebron, but the Amorites, the Canaanites, ruled this land. Melchizedek ruled in Jerusalem. And now we see during the time of Joshua, this is 400 years after the covenant was made with Abraham. You have Adonizedek is still, the name Adonizedek is still in the land of Canaan. But look at what he's doing. He's getting all these kings here in verse 3. And he says, come up and help me that we may smite Gibeon, for it made a peace treaty with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore, the 5 kings of the Amorites, we were already talking about the sins of the Amorites did not reach its fullest. And at the time that Israel was coming out, all of these Amorites that lived in Canaan are now trying to make war against Israel. Their sins are now you have Melchizedek, king of Jerusalem, came out and blessed Abraham. They came out and blessed Abraham, and now we have this Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, calling other kings of the Amorites to kill Abraham's children. Let's continue to look at this, right? So we see clearly that the king of Jerusalem, Adonizedek, who he kept the name Master of Righteousness, but he did not display the same way that Melchizedek lived. He did not express the same thing towards Yah's people the way that Melchizedek expressed. To say king of righteousness or master of righteousness is to say the same thing. When you call somebody Adon, or when you call somebody Melech, if you call somebody king or you call somebody master, you're saying the same thing. You're saying that they're a ruler over you. Okay. The Adonizedek was an Amorite. The 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yamut, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together and went up, and they all their hosts and encamped before Gibeon, and they made war against it. So the Amorite king was the king of Jerusalem, and his name or his title was Adonizedek. So Melchizedek ruled in Jerusalem. He was a priest of the Most High. Generations go by. He's not only, he's teaching his children, of course. If you're a priest of the Most High, I'm just assuming. Doesn't mean that they're going to follow. So this is, at this point in time, you have someone who's bearing the title that Melchizedek had, who's ruling in Jerusalem. But instead of blessing Abraham's children, he's trying to kill Abraham's children. And he's still an Amorite, by the way, guys. The Amorites ruled during the time of Abraham in the land of Canaan, and we have the Amorites that is there now. But what's the difference? Let's look at what Yah says in the Torah. What's the difference? Let's go to the Torah. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 24 and to 28. It says here, he's talking to Israel. He says, defile not yourselves in any of these things, for in all these nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. The land is defiled, therefore I do visit the iniquity, therefore upon it, and the land itself vomits out her inhabitants. You shall keep, therefore, the statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation, nor any stranger that sojourns among you. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. So why is Yah concerned at the land as people who are foreigners sinning? Because he made a covenant with their forefathers, and the knowledge of sin was all over all these nations at one point, especially during the time of Abraham. But during the time of Israel, they have become abominable. So this is why Yah is going to remove them. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 18, looking at verse 9 to 13. Look at what it says here. It says here, when you are coming to the land which Yah your Elohim gives you, you shall not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. You see the difference? When he was talking to Abraham, he said that their iniquity is not yet full. But when he's talking to Israel, he's saying that they don't do the abominations that these nations are doing. Therefore, there shall not be found among you anyone that makes his son or daughter pass through the fire, uses divination, observers of times, enchanters, a witch, a charmer, consulter with familiar spirits, a wizard, necromancer, because all that do these things are an abomination to Yahuah. And because these abominations, Yahuah your Elohim does drive them out from before you. You shall be perfect as Yahuah your Elohim, for these nations which you shall possess hearken unto observers of time, diviners, but as for you, Yahuah your Elohim shall not allow you to do so. So you see this. If this is normal for the nations to live like this, how can Yah just punish nations that doesn't know who Yah is, that doesn't acknowledge him, that don't serve him, that don't worship him, that don't know his truth, that don't know about sin? Well, guess what? They do know. Their forefathers knew. Ham, Japheth, and Shem knew. And as they went throughout the town, there were nations that still knew. And they met Abraham, and Abraham met these nations, and they still knew. But by the time it got to Israel, they were so filled with abominations that Yah drove them out from the land because of their abominations. This is what verse 12 says. All these things are the abominations unto Yahuah, because these abominations, Yahuah, because of these abominations, this is the reason why Yahuah is driving them out from Canaan. He's not driving them out from Canaan because Israel is like his favorite people that he just loves. He's driving them out because not only are they sinning, but he's fulfilling the promise that he gave to Abraham at the same time. That means that their iniquities and abominations have been continuously, I would say, done. Like, look at what it's saying they're doing. They're offering their sons and daughters to the fire. They're creating the witchcraft. They're worshiping the heavens. All of these things Yah was dealing with the nations. So when Melchizedek was alive, he was an Amorite king with the other Amorite kings that lived in that whole city, in that whole town. And as time went on, their sins started to grow. Does anybody remember Abimelech being a righteous nation, right? Does anybody remember what happened with Isaac? Well, Isaac went to the land of Abimelech as well. And Isaac went to that land, and Abimelech, there was another man named Abimelech, I believe it's probably his son, who was trying to manipulate Isaac. He wasn't saying he was righteous. He tried to manipulate Isaac and force him into a covenant with him. If you read the story of Isaac, you're going to see that he went to Gerar, just as Abraham. Matter of fact, he did the same thing as his father. He said that Rebekah was his sister. So, and then Yah spoke to Abimelech in his mind. Now, when he went out from Gerar, he started to dig wells, and the people from that city kept on covering his well and saying that it belongs to us. But Isaac kept moving away further and further until he found a well, and they did not cover it. And he called that place, I think he called that place Beersheba. So, which was this, if you look at Beersheba, Sheba is 7. That was the 7th time that he dug a well, and the 7th time that he dug a well it remained. So he called that place Beersheba, which is the according to the number 7. But anyway, so Isaac went to that city, and now the people are not the same way as they were with Abraham. They started to try to manipulate Isaac. They tried to take advantage of him. By the time Jacob came, you have his own family, Laban, using him for 14 years, right? And then you have the mixture of the family, Esau, marrying Canaanite women, right? Marrying Canaanite women and dishonoring Isaac. So you kind of see along the line of all these years passing by, you start to see a mingling. And this is why Yah always wanted his people to stay separate from all the other nations, because he saw that their principles was not in submission to the word of Yah. So Melchizedek, being a king of Salem, by the time Joshua came, you have Adonizedek, king of Salem, but he is trying to kill Israel. So you see the I would say the degradation or the decline of righteousness with Salem, but you see them trying to uphold that same title. This right here is very important, because a lot of times we think that the priesthood of Melchizedek started with this man named Melchizedek in Genesis 14. But if you look at the reason why he's the priest of the Most High is because he was taught righteousness from his forefather, Noah. First thing that Noah did was uncover the ark and build an altar in Genesis chapter 9. When he built, Genesis chapter 8. When he built the altar, he made the covenant with Yah, and Yah made a covenant with him and his children. Whenever you see that in scripture, Yah is not just letting you just live your life by yourself and forget about your children and not teach you or your children the ways of righteousness. When he's in a covenant with Abraham, with Japheth, Shem, and Ham, they were all taught righteousness, and they all had to display and teach to their children righteousness. And the more that they moved away from righteousness is the more that they disconnected themselves from Yah's blessing, including this man named Melchizedek. Now, Melchizedek is a title, and we can clearly see it because you have Melchizedek and then you have Adonizedek. You have two similar names centering around ruling in righteousness, but only one was the priest of the Most High. So what happened to everyone else? We can see that the sins started to become abominations. And at the time of the abominations, we have a very dark period of time where the only light that we have is Israel. That's why it was such a sad moment that Israel could not fulfill its purpose in being a light to all the nations. And so we have this situation happening now where we are still trying to be a light to all the nations. But before it came to us, Yah came to Israel with a priesthood. No, I'm not talking about the Levitical priesthood. Let me show you. Felicia?
Yep, Shabbat Shalom. Just going back real quick. I know you talking about Melchizedek right now, but you mentioned about the land, that I think it was in Genesis, that land that he gave them. I read in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 20, verse 6, and where it shows that he had searched out for them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the land with the Canaan or the Canaanites lived in. Is that the
Right.
same land?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not only restricted to there too. Like I said, when I showed the map, I showed those 3 spots where, let me see, there's a spot where Canaan wasn't the goal, right? So look at this. You see this line here? This is I believe this is I'm not sure if they think this is the Jordan. Yeah, this is the Jordan River. So this green line here is the Jordan River. From here, this is Dan. This is Sidon. From here down to here, I would say up here, sorry, is Canaan. These 3 spots here was extra. It was given to them because they took it over on the way to Canaan. You read about that in Joshua chapter 1 to 2. You see them. Matter of fact, I think Moses was there with them, and they asked to keep this land for themselves. So Yah was willing to give them the same dominion in righteousness as he gave to Abraham, as he gave to Noah. Dominion wasn't restricted to this little piece of land. As you can see, these 3 spots here, this spot here was also given to them. They occupied more than just Canaan, but Canaan was like the symbol of what else Yah was going to give to them, right? So every time it talks about Canaan, it's talking about a promise that was given, right? So the promise that was given was not necessarily only Canaan. Let me see if I could all right, so look at this. Romans chapter 4, verse 13. It says here, for the promise that he should be the heir of the world, that he should be the heir of the world, was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. So through the righteousness of faith, Abraham received the promise that he was going to inherit the world. Why is this a very important point, because everybody that received covenant with Yah inherited the whole earth. Noah inherited the whole earth. Adam owned the whole earth. If you look at this, it says here in Genesis 9:2, the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every fowl of the air and everything that moves on this earth, all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Noah and his sons owned everything. Everything on this earth is what they owned. And this was the same promise given to Abraham, which is why he wasn't like so bent out of shape that he didn't receive Canaan. He knew that his promise was bigger than Canaan. But Israel received Canaan because Canaan was cursed by Noah. You see, we're not given a promise because someone else is cursed. We're given a promise including everything that the wicked own will be given to the righteous. And Canaan was becoming wicked and it was given to the righteous. But that wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't just Canaan. The goal was to inherit what Noah inherited, to inherit what Adam had, to inherit the whole earth. Daniel chapter 2, it talks about the stone that hits the foot of the statue and grows into a mountain that fills the whole earth, not just Canaan. You see, so when you stop at Canaan, that's more of I would say a symbolic restriction. Like you giving Canaan, but I'm giving you a promise, right? Abraham didn't get that promise because his promise was bigger than Canaan. So if you read Hebrews, it says that he was looking for a better country, one that Yah made. But Canaan was supposed to be like a first stop, but they never drove all the nations out. You see what I'm saying? They never did what they were supposed to do. So now we're waiting for the time in which every wicked person from this whole earth will be judged and driven out, and that the people of Yah will receive a new heaven and a new earth as their promise. This is what we're supposed to get from being in a cursed land named Canaan. It's supposed to allow us to understand that Yah is going to drive out the wicked and give us the whole earth. And this is what he promises throughout the whole scripture. When he judges the earth, who's going to inherit it? Matter of fact, it says the meek shall inherit the earth, right? So I think what's happening is we're looking at these elements and we're forgetting what Yah promised the people before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're forgetting what Yah promised to the people before Israel and Moses. We need to go back and see that we need to continue a harmony between the covenant made with Adam and Noah and everyone else. It's not a different covenant. It's the everlasting covenant. So the priesthood was a part of that from the very beginning. If there was a fall, that means that there was a necessity of an intercession. Where was the teaching of an intercession made? The teaching of an intercession was made when there was given sacrifices. Who was sacrificing? Abel was sacrificing. How did Abel learn about sacrifices? He was taught that. His father had to teach his children how to serve Yah. That's why Seth served Yah. That's why Enos served Yah. That's why Enoch served Yah. That's why Methuselah served Yah, because their fathers were teaching them the righteous standard on how to live. So when we get to Noah, because nobody sees that same thing written out for you, we think that there's nothing from Noah all the way to Abraham, and that's not true. All the nations was involved in a covenant with Yah, but they had to live in righteousness. When they moved away from righteousness, Yah started to act. He started to divide the people. He separated Abraham. He gave him a land. He promised the children of Israel. He delivered Israel from Egypt. He started to deliver these nations into Israel's hand. But it wasn't just the ownership or rulership as kings, right? It wasn't just the rulership of these lands that he was given Israel, right? Melech is the kingship. It wasn't just the kingship he was given. It says the king of righteousness. It was the priesthood. It was the understanding of righteousness that he was also given. So when you get to Exodus 19, we see that this rulership or this kingly priesthood was offered to Israel. Exodus chapter 19. Everybody knows this verse. It says, you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. A kingdom of priests. Is he talking to only Levi? Absolutely not. He's not talking to Levi. He's talking to his, like, 12 tribes of people. 12 tribes of people, he wanted them all to become priests. And he wanted them all to be a righteous, set-apart nation. Let's look at what this means, right? And I want to show you an interesting thing. Because we're looking at Melchizedek like it's a name. It's not a name, it's a title, because his son's name is, or another Amorite king in Jerusalem's name is Adonizedek, because it's a title that he tried to keep. And you can't keep it without actually living in righteousness. You can't be Israel and not be righteous. You can't be a priest and not be righteous. You have to dwell, you have to possess these titles that Yah give you in righteousness. So to be a ruler of righteousness, you have to rule in righteousness. You cannot be walking in sin and still have to think that you can bear this title. A kingdom, if you look at this word, you shall be a kingdom of priests. It says here dominion. It says here estate, to rule, right? King's reign. He's not saying that you should be a place of righteousness, a priest. He's saying that you should be a group of rulers that are priests as well. Let me show you, let me confirm that, right? So this word kingdom also means king's reign, royalty. It's not talking about a place that you own only. It's talking about people that rule. Let me go to another place that says this statement. It's in Peter. 2 Peter chapter, I believe it's 2. 2 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2. So it's here, a holy priesthood. Here we go. It says here, but you shall be a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. This word royal, a royal priesthood, right? A royal priesthood. This word royal, just like we read the kingdom, this word royal here is kingly. A kingly priesthood. Melchizedek. Kings of righteousness. You shall be a people, a kingly people of righteousness. Now, how are we made kings? And how are we made priests? And we see here that we are made into this when we accept Yahusha. We are made into this when we believe in Yahuah, when we believe in his word, when we execute righteousness and we spread righteousness and we share righteousness and we live it and we teach it to our children, we become a royal priesthood. This is what Melchizedek was. This is what all of Israel was. This is what Yah was offering Israel in Exodus 19. He was offering them to be a group of kingly priests, just as Melchizedek was. But guess what? Why did they end up with only one tribe as priests? Because of their sins. Because of their sins, they could not be a group of kingly priests. They could not be. Matter of fact, the kingship was promised by Jacob. That the king, let me see if I could find it. So it says here that he's talking about Judah. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. Unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So you have this separation of those who teach the law and those who have the rulership And Yah was trying to merge those two things together. The rulership and the priesthood was not supposed to be two separate tribes, because Melchizedek was a demonstration of being a priest and a king at the same time. And then we are supposed to be a priest and kings at the same time. And let me show you this real quick. I'm trying not to go to Hebrews 7 yet, because I know everybody goes there first, but I want to establish the principle of being kingly priests and how we're made this way. We're only made this way through Yahusha and by the power of Yah through his son. So look at this. Revelation 1:6. It says here, well, 5 and 6. It says, Yahushua Messiah, who is the faithful witness, the first begotten of the dead, the prince of the kings of the earth, unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins with his own blood, and have made us kings and priests unto Elohim and his Father. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. Kings and priests at the same time. Kings of righteousness. Matter of fact, look at this verse here. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, going all the way down. It says here, for he have made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of Elohim. So Yahusha not only makes us kings, but he makes us the righteousness of Elohim. What does the word Melchizedek mean? Kings of righteousness. So when we're talking about Melchizedek priesthood, we're using Melchizedek as if he's the one that started this priesthood. He's not the one that started this priesthood. He bears the same title that everyone who's a king and a priest bears, will also be a king of righteousness. This is not his name. This is a title, but he was an actual man that was the priest of the Most High, and he ruled as a priest. Sister Alexandria?
So talking about Israel and how the Father wanted Israel to be a kingdom of priests, would they have had the title? Would this have been a title amongst Israel?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, when Israel was set up, when the priesthood came after the gold. So even though he can offer them individually this covenant, right? It was different than him desiring all of his people to be a kingdom of priests. So the issue was not that he could not bless individuals with this everlasting covenant, right? The issue was that he was trying to bless a whole nation with it, to have a whole kingdom with it. You see, so does that make sense?
Yes, it
So
does.
people were entering into relationships with Yah where they were being in possession of being a king of righteousness. Moses was a king of righteousness. He ruled and he had to teach the law at the same time. So it's just interesting how all of the righteous individuals that basically had authority had to have authority and teach the righteousness of Yah at the same time. So being a ruler of righteousness or a kingly righteous person, or person who's teaching righteousness through his life and words, is through the Ruach, is through the possession of by faith, possessing the Ruach and being able to be this individual. Every single prophet, every single person that entered into this covenant and started to execute spreading righteousness to Israel were in a covenant with Yah that other people were not in. And this was the problem that Yah had. Yah did not want it only to be certain people. He wanted a kingdom of priests. And I think that's what we're missing. So many people are talking about Melchizedek as if, let me ask this question to everybody, you two sisters, since you're on there. if this person is a man, Yahusha is a priest after the order of this man? This is a good question because we're going to go to Hebrews now real quick.
No.
Right.
But
Would this
because
man go ahead.
He's the man, but it's the title that is he's the order of Melchizedek, the title, what it
Praise Yah.
represents, but not the
Praise
man.
Yah. Praise Yah. Would Yahusha bear this title after this man bore this title?
No.
Or would he bear it first? So look at this. Look at how Hebrews explain this, right? There's so much to explain with this. To me, sometimes it's a little bit crazy how there's so much to pull out of just the reality of where Abraham was located, who was ruling in these nations at this time of Abraham were all Amorites. During the time of Israel came out, they were still ruled by Amorites. Messiah, Yah specifically told Abraham that the Amorites' sins was not yet full, so he could not give to Abraham Jerusalem and all these other lands because the Amorites did not sin yet. You see what I'm saying? So now we're thinking all these Amorites rule, but then in Jerusalem, there's no Amorites. Jerusalem is in Canaan. It's not a good assumption to think that Jerusalem is like the only little city out of all the Canaanites that some magical man ruled in this little dot, and then all of a sudden another man came and took over this magical man and tried to kill Israel? No, this man was an Amorite man that loved Yah and worshiped him because he upheld the covenant that Yah made with Noah, with his great grandforefathers, not only with Noah, but also his father Ham. He upheld this covenant that he had with Ham and with Noah. And that's why he was a king of righteousness. That's why Abimelech knew about sin. He was another Canaanite king. All of these kings were Canaanites. Abraham was taken out of Mesopotamia to go in the land of Canaanites. So to think that he went into a land of Canaanite and then in this particular city there's no Canaanites, that's not a way to think. But we have so many other false books telling us Melchizedek with Shem and all of these other things. It's not consistent with what Moses is trying to tell us about Genesis. Moses has given us the geographical history, where they went, where Abraham ran to, where he came back to. He even told them what river he was by, which was right next to Jerusalem, which made it very convenient that he was by the river of next to Jerusalem, and that the king of Jerusalem was able to come out and meet Abraham out there with the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah to thank him and to give him bread and wine and to bless him. We're looking at this too mystical instead of very realistic. This is a real historical situation that happened, and not to mystify who this person is, but to look exactly at who this person is and what that person's relationship is. But we're about to go into real quick. We're about to go into to see if Hebrews correlates with what we've been talking about so far, because I believe that it's gonna basically bring a little bit more light as to how this title Melchizedek is actually passed down. And this is gonna be a beautiful point. I'm not gonna ruin it. Go, Sister Diane. Sister Diane, you there?
Yeah, shalom, shalom. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, beautiful lesson, beautiful teaching. before you move on, really quick, we'll talk about this order and saying that Melchizedek was not, a human. He wasn't a man. The name meant like a position. And it makes me think of Psalms 110. And that's one place I see it's 4, where, it says after the order. And I know we can find that in, the other places where it used it. But this particular came to mind. Look at that word order.
Oh yes,
Strong states.
Hold on.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's that's exactly what I wanted to. Go ahead and finish it. That's fine.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. Well, then, if you're going anywhere,
No, go ahead. You can go ahead.
That word order is a reason, suit, or style, cause in a state or order regard, but it's the feminine of 1697, which carries with it. I didn't have a chance to go there to look at that. 1697, which has with us implication of to rule, to judge. If I'm saying that correctly, so so it can be that an order is not a person. I mean, a person is not an order, and an order is not a person. Rather, it is an office in which a person holds a position. And, we do have the Hebrew word debar, which carries a definition meaning to command. So he was a king, he was a priest, so he commanded. In both ways.
Right. Who in scripture, ultimately, the one at the very top of this idea, who would be called ultimately, like no one above this person, who would be called the king of righteousness?
Yahuah.
Would it be Yahusha? Can it be Yahusha to originate as the king of righteousness?
Yes, from the beginning of time.
So this is beautiful, why this verse is very timely that sister brought out. See, what's happening is someone is swearing, someone is declaring that this another person. If we look at verse 1 of Psalms 110, we see who Yahuah is talking to, right? Let me see if I can find look at it. All right. So Yahuah said to my master, right? So from chapter 1, we having this conversation between two individuals. One is speaking and one is listening. You have Yahuah is saying, and then another person who is David's master is listening, is receiving. You can't be the ultimate king if you're receiving. If you're receiving the opportunity to rule from someone else, right? We go to verse 4. Yahuah swore 7 oaths and will not repent. You are a priest after the order of Melchizedek. I noticed that is interesting. It didn't touch order. So we're going to touch order right now. This whole chapter is about what Yahuah is saying to his son. So look at this. Order is debra or debra, right? It means it's an emphasis on speaking to another person. When you speak, right, the word debra, I think debarim, Deuteronomy, comes from the word debra as well. Debarim, which means two statements. Deuteronomy means second statement, right? Now look at this. A reason, a suit, a cause, a estate, right? Let me see if I could use Brown Driver Briggs. to cause, after the cause, right? This is the order of Melchizedek, after the cause. Melchizedek is the cause. I want to show you this real quick. Melchizedek is the one, the word, it says, after the order of Melchizedek, after the causing of Melchizedek, after the estate, that's what the word Deborah means also, the estate of Melchizedek. That means that everything that's being passed to David's master here, which is Yahusha, is after the estate that belongs to Melchizedek. It's a succession. It's something that's being caused on this person to become a priest. Now, the problem a lot of times is when you think that this person in Genesis 14 is the owner of the title Melchizedek, you won't know who this person in Psalms 110:4 is. Only one person can pass down priesthood to Yahusha. Only one person can say to his master to sit at his right hand until his enemy is his footstool. Only one person can say to this person that Yah shall send the rod of his strength out of Zion to rule in the midst of his enemies. Only one person can swear and not repent and declare that someone is a priest after the order of the King of Righteousness. Who is this King of Righteousness that he's giving this title to? He's giving this title. Let me see if I could. Who is this King of Righteousness making these declarations? Sister, Brother Vic, Sister Cynthia?
I was just going to ask in Psalm where you were there, Psalm 110.
This is Psalms 110. Psalms 110.
Yeah, verse 4, where it says, after the order, could it be read as just like the order of, or as the order of Melchizedek, or no?
It can't because it's being, there's an oath. Yahuah is making an oath, and Yahuah is swearing, and Yahuah is declaring. So no one else is involved in causing Yahusha to become a priest except for Yahuah. Yahuah is not going to say, my son is going to become a king of righteousness after the manner of another human being. My son is going to be the king of righteousness after the matter of the king of righteousness. See, he's going to become a priest after the manner of the king of righteousness. So the question is, who is the king of righteousness that he is becoming a priest after? And this is what let me go to Hebrews real quick. Hebrews chapter, there's a few chapters in Hebrews that kind of discuss this. It starts from chapter 7. Here we go. Here we go. So look at this. It says, it is yet far more evident, for after the similitude of Melchizedek, meaning like this is something Melchizedek represented the priesthood that's arising right now. This is not saying that the similitude is the same. This is the exact priesthood. Now watch this. Let me see if I can go. He makes a correlation between Aaron. Right here, look at this. Verse 21. Hebrews chapter 7, verse, no, there's too many verses. I'm trying to, it says, for inasmuch as not without an oath he was made a priest, for those priests were made without an oath, but this with an oath by him that said to him, Yahuah swear and will not repent, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Now watch this. Look at how this word order is described, which I believe falls exactly in line as what we read in Deborah. It says here, a fixed succession A fixed succession. When there's a succession, that means that something is being passed down in an orderly fashion. It is being passed down. It is a fixed succession. It is a orderly time, due or right order. It is a ranking and position. Now watch this. So it's constantly correlating the difference between the Levitical priests and the Melchizedek priests, and why the Levitical priest is forever, and why the Melchizedek priest is not. While the Levitical priest is not forever, and why the Melchizedek priest is forever. But I'm looking for. Here we go. So look at this statement here. If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there for another priest that should rise after the order of Melchizedek, or succession, right? And not be called after the order of Aaron. Okay. Now I see people in the chat writing it after his own manner, right? After his order. So watch this. The representation that was given for the Melchizedek was the Aaron priesthood. The order of Aaron has a similarity to the order of Melchizedek. How is the order of Aaron passed down? Aaron is high priest, and the priesthood is passed down to who?
His sons.
Right. So he's saying, how is there now an order of Melchizedek, of a priesthood passed down to Yahusha? Right? So Yahusha is not Melchizedek. He's a priest after the order. He's a priest in which the priesthood was passed down to him. Just as the order of Aaron is Aaron passing down the priesthood to his sons. So Aaron is passing down the priesthood to his sons. Melchizedek is passing down the priesthood to his son. And sons and daughters. Only the sons of Aaron become priests. But everyone in the covenant with Yah becomes his sons and daughters. Israel is my firstborn, right? So he offered Israel to become priests. He tried to pass down the kingship and righteousness from him through his son to his people. There is no man in which Yahusha becomes a priest after that person. There is only one king of righteousness that swore himself to declare that Yahusha would be a priest, and that's in Psalms 110, verse 4. He swore that he will be a priest after the order of the king of righteousness. Everyone who comes to Yahusha becomes kings and priests. And it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 22, it says that he became sin so we can be made the righteousness of Elohim in him. So we are kings and priests of righteousness in him, who was made a priest after the order of the king of righteousness. And that king of righteousness is Yahuah himself. Yahuah himself is the only one that can swear and authorize and pass down a priesthood of pure righteousness to his son, in which all believers would have to receive the priesthood through him. There's no way that this person in Genesis 14 had the priesthood before Yahusha had the priesthood. But he possessed the covenant with Yah, which allowed him to enter into a kingly priesthood with the Father and his son. And this is why Abraham ruled as well as interceded for Lot and offered sacrifices for his family, because he was a priest for his family, teaching righteousness to those around him, but he was a ruler. He was a king as well in the land of Canaan, even though he did not rule in Canaan. Melchizedek ruled in Salem, He was a king because he had a covenant that Yah made with his father Ham in Genesis chapter 9. And that everlasting covenant is the same covenant that he was trying to give to Israel in Exodus 19 when he says, I'm going to make you a kingdom of priests. But they built a golden calf. So I have to create an addendum to try to teach you how to be priests. So I call Levi to come in and be priests, because when I drew the line, only Levi came and said, I will repent. So only Levi is going to be an example for you until you have faith. Once you have faith, I would allow you to enter into this covenant as well. This is how the priesthood works. It's the demonstration of righteousness. When you enter into this priesthood, you become to shine your light as a light of righteousness to the world. But not only a light of righteousness, you own that righteousness. It's a part of you. You rule, you walk, you live in righteousness, because that's who you are. Yahusha made you kings and priests now. This is not like some type of future thing where you sit down on a throne with a crown. It's how you live now. How you live now determines if you're a ruler of righteousness. But let me go to some of these hands. Let me go to Brother Charles.
Wasn't there somebody before me?
Oh, go ahead, brother.
Oh, well, Sister June said I'm gonna electrocute somebody, so I'm gonna go with that little joke. So what I was thinking about was now that you said this, I really was thinking about it, that all of these people they was passed these things down through their fathers. Noah passed it down to Ham, Shem, and Japheth. It's like teaching them a trade, and he passed it down to them, and some kept it, and then they began to lose it by not using it or whatever ended up happening. And the word Yahusha means upright. It means upright, righteous. Well, I ain't gonna say righteous, but it means upright, right, and all of these different things. And they became the Yahusha lights. So everybody is some type of light. So the Father chose them and taught them how to be technicians. So they wired up their houses, right? And so when people walk past, they see the lights on all of these houses. In the house of Yahusha, they see the lights in the house of Yahusha. So the Father already had the things ready for them. So he taught them. The transformer was there. Yahusha was already there, but it was for us to connect with Yahusha, and then to the Father for us to have the light. And then once we connect with them, then we can go out to the other houses and wire them up right and teach them how to have light within their house. And that's how I'm seeing it, like in a plain, just in case somebody was trying to look,
Right.
The Father taught us these things and we passed it down. He passed it. He chose some people out of these people. Not that we were better than anyone else. It's just that he chose us, and then we went out and we started teaching the other nations and brought them out of darkness, and now their houses have light, and the whole block is filling up. But there are some in darkness, and that's what he chose us to be, the technician. But without the law, we couldn't find the problem. So this is why we need the law and all those things, and that's why they was a righteous nation, because the Father laid out all these things, and he had a covenant with the whole world. That's why the rainbow is there. So I get that though, brother. But praise y'all.
Praise Yah, praise Yah. And he came to Israel because he had a covenant with their father, with their father. That's why he came to Israel. Remember, the children is only the receiver of the covenant through the fathers. So Abraham sent Ham, Japheth, Shem is what allowed this covenant to go to the world. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is what allowed this covenant to go to the children of Israel. That's why it's called the children of Israel, because they can only obtain Israel's promise if they live like Israel. Just like Abraham, they can only enter into Abraham's covenant if they live like Abraham. if they live outside of Abraham, like Abraham, or outside of Isaac and Jacob, because the covenant was made for them, they can't enter into no covenant unless they live like the ones he made the covenant with. So Shem, Japheth can only live according to the covenant if the nations live the way that Noah lived, and then before that and things like that. This is why it's very interesting. Yah is always passing things down, but his relationship with you is as a father to a child. And he included all of his people. He included all of his people to be referred to as one son. So he said, Israel is my firstborn son. And then I have multiple nations that will be enlightened by this son. And then he made it very clear in the prophet Isaiah that these nations are going to come and offer sacrifices too. And my house will be a house for all people. The house in which the priests only used to go in. So it's interesting how the house that the priests used to offer the sacrifice to is now a house in which all nations can offer sacrifices to, because all nations have to engage in this priesthood if they're going to engage with Yah. That's why if the nations wanted to come and engage in the Passover is a sacrifice. You will have to be circumcised. You have to turn your whole life to Yah. You have to be submitted to his law. There's one law to him, to the foreigner, and to the one homegrown. He will be as one homegrown. Why? Because when you engage with Yah and enter into his covenant, you become a priest. So you have to offer this Passover sacrifice. That's the only sacrifice that every child of Israel had to offer. You see what I'm saying? Everything is revolved around what the priests were supposed to do only, right? So when you're looking at the priesthood, you're looking at what the priests had to do as priests and righteous priests. And then everything that we participate in has to reflect a priesthood as well. And that's what the Passover lamb was at that time, is offering a sacrifice that represented a priesthood, me entering into a priesthood. But anyway, go ahead. Sister Felicia, Felicia, sorry.
Yeah, please, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was trying to find that verse that said that Yah is the sovereign of all sovereigns. And also in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 21, verse 27, states that overthrown, I make it overthrown. It shall be no longer until he comes to whom it rightly belongs, and I shall give it. And so, as you were saying, that the only one that can give him that throne would be the sovereign of all sovereign, which is Yah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
See, the thing is, Yahusha can't be the sovereign of all sovereigns if there's a sovereign over Yahusha. If someone makes Yahusha a sovereign, then there has to be a sovereign over him. You can't be made into a king by someone else and that person not be a king as well, or even a king over you. So that verse I think you're looking for is right here. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 13 and 14. It says, or 13, 14, and 15, it says, I give you charge in the sight of Elohim, who quickens all things before Yahushua Messiah, who before Pontius Pilate witnessed a good confession, that you keep his commandments without spot, unrebukable, until the appearing of our master Yahushua Messiah, which in his times he shall show who is the blessed and only potentate, the King of kings, the Master of masters, who only has immortality, dwelling in light which no man can approach, whom no man have seen, nor can see, to whom honor and power of everlasting. Amen. Who is this he talking about? Yahusha is going to reveal this person who is the King of Kings, who's the only one that has immortality, who no man seen or can see. Many people seen Yahusha before he came in the flesh and after he came in the flesh, but nobody has seen the Father. very clear. The Father is the potentate. The Father is the King of Kings. The Father is the only one that gives immortality. Yahusha made it very clear that it's the Father that gave him life, right? It says here, you have given him power over all flesh, that he should give eternal life to as many as you have given to him. It's the Father that gave the power of all flesh to Yahusha. You can't be the king of all kings and then there's somebody before you giving you power, giving you authority, giving you rulership. Yahusha walks in his Father's authority. He does not walk in his own authority. So his Father is the only one that can declare and swear that he's a priest after the order of the King of Righteousness. And that all priests who believe and accept this faith will enter into a covenant in which they will become kings of righteousness also through Yahusha. And here's the reason why. And then we're going to go to our final hands. Romans 8. It says this. It says here, verse 16, the Spirit itself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of Elohim. And if you're children, then you are inheritors of Elohim, and joint inheritors with Messiah. Think about this. If you're a joint inheritor with Messiah, and Yah says that you are a priest after the order of Melchizedek, then what are you going to be a priest after the order of Melchizedek? If he's going to become the King of Righteousness and you're a joint heir with the King of Righteousness, then you also are going to bear the title joint heirs, and you will be joined together in that position of being a King of Righteousness. So this is why the scriptures is clear. He made you to be kings and priests and of righteousness, because you are joint heirs with Messiah. You are one with Messiah. Whatever position Messiah has from his Father is the position you would also walk in as well, because you are walking as he walked. I hope that this is clear. The lineage of Melchizedek lines up with Ham. Ham was in a covenant. Ham and his children was in a covenant with Yah. All of these people was in the same everlasting covenant, the covenant that has righteousness, that has understanding of sin, and that has a priesthood, an everlasting priesthood. And this is why you see Melchizedek living in the land of the Amorites, because the Amorites did not sin against Yah the way that they did when 400 years later, when Israel came out of Egypt. All right, Brother Ben.
Yeah, shalom, brother. So you've always said that if we don't understand anything or we're unsure or doubt anything, to ask you to clarify. So
absolutely.
A lot of the times I hear a lot of information, and sometimes I miss. Like, you did a really good job throughout the whole night of pointing out bits and pieces, but can you, in the most simplest terms, like in a minute, just explain, this is the reason for the teaching, this is what I'm trying to show, this is the conclusion that we're coming up with, you know what I mean? Just so I can like regurgitate it to somebody else, because I can't quite put the words together what it's all about.
The purpose of this, thank you for that question. The purpose of this is to show that the same covenant and the same relationship covenant that Yah was trying to restore since the fall of Adam is the same covenant that they had during the times of Noah. It's the same covenant that was offered to the world when Abraham was born. It's the same covenant that was offered to Abraham. It's the same covenant that was offered to Israel. It's the same covenant that was offered to us. Same righteousness was given to them. The same priesthood was given to all those who entered into the covenant from the very beginning. This message is to help us know the harmony between the priesthood in the old to the priesthood in the new, and how Yah has always been revealing this particular priesthood amongst the world. All those who serve him will enter into this covenant, and this covenant possesses a priesthood in which you will become a king of righteousness. So the reason being is because there's a disconnect with the Melchizedek priesthood. There's an emphasis that the Levitical priesthood will rise up again. There's this idea of another temple, Levitical temple, that's going to come back. There's this moving away from Yah restoring the king of righteousness priesthood, and there's this idea that there's going to be a restoration of a Levitical priesthood. So I just want to show that there's a harmony from the beginning all the way to the end that has the same priesthood. There's nothing new about Yah's righteousness. There's nothing new about Yah's relationship with his people. He always desired his people to be rulers, as well as righteous, as well as priests to deliver righteousness to everyone else around them. So that's kind of, I hope that that's simple, unless there's, I hope that's simple enough.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And then the other thing I just wanted to clarify was that, so Melchizedek, can you clarify the point between Melchizedek and Yahusha? Not that there's a priestly connection, but what is the I don't know what I'm trying to ask. It's like,
yeah, what's the reason? So the book of Hebrews says that he was in a similitude of the son of Elohim. Like he lived his life, and he looked righteous the way that the son of Yah looked when Yahusha walked on this earth. So the similarities was to show not the origin of this priesthood, but to show that Yah has been constantly trying to pass down this priesthood to his people, and that his son is the head of this priesthood after the order of Melchizedek, meaning after Melchizedek, Yahusha is the head or the high priest of this priesthood. So what I was bringing up is the conflict that if this man is Melchizedek and no one else is, the Hebrews is saying that Yahusha is the high priest after the man in Genesis chapter 14. This is why everyone makes that man like a mystical person. Like some people say that some people even teach that's the Holy Spirit. Some people teach that's Shem. Some people teach that's like Yahusha coming down before he was a man, because it's impossible for Yahusha to be a priest after the order of another human being on this earth. So what I'm saying is that the title Melchizedek doesn't originate with that man in Genesis 14. And Joshua 10 shows that the title Adonizedek, the title is still being passed down in an earthly manner, even to unrighteous people. So it shows that the word Melchizedek is not his name, it's a title. And that by the time Israel came about, that title was being used incorrectly. That those people were no longer righteous. So they were calling themselves the kings of righteousness, and they were no longer living in righteousness. So Joshua chapter 10 and Genesis 14 shows that the word Melchizedek is a title. It's not a individual person's name. But his example of being a priest is the example that Yah has tried to give to Israel when he asked them to become kings and priests. It's the same representation in Revelation where it says that through Yahusha, we are kings and priests. So Melchizedek is like an earthly example for all of us to see. It's kind of like how the prophets are earthly examples of righteous people, and that we not necessarily have the spirit of Elijah, but the spirit of Elijah is actually Yah's spirit. But it's called the spirit of Elijah because he was a great example for us. So when we display and utilize Yah's Ruach, we call it the spirit of Elijah, but it's not really his spirit, it's Yah's. So likewise, Melchizedek has the title King of Righteousness, but it's not his title, it's Yah's title. Yah's title is King of Righteousness, but he gives it to those who are his servants, his children, his people. Those who are in a covenant with him are also bear his title. on this earth. And that's what we're doing now. We are kings and priests bearing Yah's title through Yahusha on this earth. And this has always been the case. So what I want to do is I want to show that this is a consistent theme throughout scripture, and there's no need to create all these different mystical ideas of Melchizedek and all these divided ideas of a priesthood, a Levitical priesthood, Melchizedek priesthood. We don't have to do none of those things. We look at what Yah did. We look at what happened, what man did. We look at what Yah's trying to restore. And then we keep that same message going in the same message that Yah's been giving us for thousands of years. So that's the main focus that I'm trying to give here. So that way we're not looking at these books and it's giving us different information, and that information doesn't match up with what scripture gives or what Moses gives. Because a lot of this information doesn't come from Torah. It doesn't come from Moses. It comes from somebody else outside of Moses. And that's where the confusion lies. There's too much trust in books outside of Moses. And I think that everything has to stem from the example or the description given in the Torah. And, so.
All right. Thank you.
Praise Yah.
Praise Yah.
Of course, you could definitely hit me up, ask me more, because this has been taken out of context for a long time, in many different directions. And I'm pretty sure that nobody heard that Melchizedek was an Amorite king from the children of Ham, because everybody's looking at the covenant with Israel so much, they forget that all the nations was in a covenant with Yah through their fathers, Ham, Japheth, and Shem. So I think that once we put that piece in there, it's going to show that the things that don't fit is going to stand out a lot. But sister, Brother Vic and Sister Cynthia, and then Brother Charles, and then we're going to close.
So would it be correct to say that Yahuah is the originator of the order of Melchizedek, aka the priesthood, and that Yahusha is the head or leader of the same?
Yes, yeah, he is the. It's funny to say that Yahuah is the. You say that statement again. You say Yahuah is
the originator or the creator of the order of Melchizedek, or the priest.
Yeah, and I wanted to make it even more personal. Just as the order of Aaron is, Yahuah is the priesthood. He is the priesthood, and he can only pass down the order. He is the priesthood, and it passes down from him to his children automatically. Once you are his child, you are automatically responsible to enter into this position. It's just like Aaron. When Aaron had a son, he automatically was in line to receive the position of a priest, because it wasn't that Aaron started a priesthood, it's Aaron was the priesthood. So everyone that's from Aaron is a part of the priesthood automatically. So that's the way that Yahuah is the king of righteousness. Everyone who comes after Yahuah and they are in him, they will possess it. And you are absolutely right. Yahusha is the one that he placed as the door into that priesthood.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a good question, because Yahusha, Yah has placed him in the center of every access to Yah that he wants to give us. He placed Yahusha as the door, including the priesthood. And that's what we see in Psalms 110, that he swears and he makes an oath to Yahusha, saying that you are a priest after this order. And everyone else that enters into this relationship becomes a king and priest as well. You know what I mean? Because they are coming to Yahuah through Yahusha, and they're automatically obtaining this priesthood, as well as the position of a son or daughter, and the position of a king and a queen. All these positions are automatically there when you're in a relationship with Yah through Yahusha. But if you separate all these things, you're going to see, as we see now, you're going to see a lot of deviations and different ideas and all of these different things. When there's only one idea from Genesis to Revelation, there's only one idea. Yahuah, the only way to Yahuah is Yahusha, and in Yahuah possesses righteousness, rulership, promises, covenants, and you can only obtain those things through Yahusha, because it was all given to Yahusha first. So that's why he's the firstborn. And that's why sometimes when people look at Israel and say Israel's the firstborn, I don't think people know that in order to be Israel, you have to be in Yahusha. Yahusha is the one that, like, giving Jacob the name Israel is what Yahusha owns. Like, Yahusha owns that title, Israel. Like, to look at his life on this earth, he was slain from the foundation of the world. To look at his title, to see all the prophecy of him suffering and holding on unto death. You see what I'm saying? You see the difference between Jacob and Yahusha? Holding on unto Yahuah unto death, the blessing of the resurrection. Holding on to the blessing of the resurrection unto death to stay righteous in Yah is different than Jacob simply holding on until his blessing and not having to die. You see the difference? Yahusha is the true Israel. He's the one that truly wrestled with Yah and prevailed. He's the one that truly held on until he was raised up from the dead. Jacob didn't die. Jacob didn't even get into a fight with his brother. That's what he was scared about. But he was given the name Israel to represent what Yahusha would do. Yahusha is Israel. You can't be in Israel without being in Yahusha. He's the true one that held on. Read Isaiah 53. He was made into a sin offering for his people. Jacob wasn't made into that. He's the true one. Every time you look at all these elements of scripture, you're going to see that Yahusha is the true one that bears that title. And there's so many things to go into that. About Brother Charles, go ahead, brother.
Shalom. There's so much that can be brought out of this. I'm gonna go listen to this again when we get off. Because Yahusha is the cornerstone. So
right.
So the house of Yahusha, it won't be a house without him being the cornerstone, holding the foundation together to even build up and be upright. You know, because Yahshua means upright, and all those things you can connect. Yahshua, Yahshua all this stuff kind of connect. Now I see, you know, he's the upright one. It also makes me think, I'm wondering, it's not a coincidence that Yahusha grew up to be a carpenter. And what a carpenter does, it builds up the house. So he sent Yahusha to build up the house and to bring everyone back into the house, because the grandfather, you know how when you have family, you have the brother, the sister, the brother and sister, they had kids, and then it's the grandkids, and they all spread out, and it's like you don't even know who they is. And this is like Egypt. They got the same story, the father, and then they just distorted it in a different way, father, mother, and son. Everybody got somewhat the same story, and Yahusha was sent to bring it all back together, to bring everybody back into the house. So now you will learn the right way, and the law will give you the understanding to how to fix what's wrong within your house, and then you will be able to see how to get the light back, because Yahusha, not the house that Yahusha is building up, it comes with light already. You ain't got to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? So that's, you know, that's how I was kind of looking at it, you know, and he's going to bring everybody back in, and then he'll teach everybody. Kind of make me think about when he said all of those who come back up to celebrate the feast, he's bringing everybody back into the house, the whole family, Ham, and Japheth.
Right,
so,
but he's doing that
he's
now.
the priest.
Before the end, it says Matthew 24 verse 14. It says that when the gospel of this kingdom goes to all nations as a witness, then shall the end come. So Isaiah teaches, Isaiah chapter 1, it says, chapter 1 and 2, it says that all nations, the nations will rise up, not all nations, but the nations that repent will rise up and say, come, let us go to the house of Elohim so he can teach us his ways. For the Torah shall come out of Zion to all nations. So this is happening before Yahusha comes. Yahusha is doing this through us now. He's doing it through us now the way he did it through the prophets to Israel. So when he comes, it's to gather his people to tabernacles. It's not to, the opportunity to celebrate tabernacles is now. You know what I mean? So that's, but anyway, I agree with you, brother. I agree with what you're saying. I was actually looking for that verse before you mentioned it. It says that Moses is faithful in all his house, but it says that the son builds the house. He builds the house for his father. So this is what we're looking at. The building of the house. The building of the house that Solomon did, right, was a representation of Yahusha building the house of his nation, of Yah's nation. Not building the house like a physical temple, building his people. And that we, as John the Baptist, as the spirit of Elijah, right, we are supposed to prepare a people in the way for Yahuah. For when he comes, when the way comes, he'll have a people to gather up to bring us to Yahuah. But praise Yah. So thank you guys so much for even, interaction. Please go and confirm and solidify these ideas. And if there's any conflict, bring them in the next Q&A next week. Bring everything, even Ben, if there's another idea that you want to cover, let's bring it all back to next week, along with whatever other questions you want to bring. But I want to offer that whatever you see in this study that sounds inconsistent or disconnects from certain verses. I didn't go through Hebrews because a lot of people go through Hebrews. Check out Hebrews now after we read all of this. I think that you'll see that there's a reason why the descendancy of Melchizedek did not come from Levi. That's what it says in Hebrews. It says that his descendancy was not recorded with Israel because he wasn't an Israelite. He was an Amorite. So his descendancy comes from Ham, not from Shem. But anyway, anything that's disconnected, bring it back for Q&A. I want us to get clarity. There's a lot of books and a lot of ideas centering around Melchizedek, and I want to make it as simple and clear cut as possible so that way we could be equipped to handle all of these things that's being told to people. So praise Yah. Thank you guys for participating in this study. It's definitely just a blessing to hear the thoughts on it, and I'm looking forward to hearing more thoughts after you guys investigate. So I want you guys to have a blessed Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Till we meet.
Yeah.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Yeah. Shabbat shalom to everyone.